An airport farewell, unheld tears, and a promise of love as Rosé and Bruno Mars face a whispered truth that shakes fate and the heart. "Don't go. If you take that step now, I don't know who I'll be after this," Rosé whispered, her voice trembling, just as the departure announcement echoed and the automatic doors of the airport began to slide shut. The air smelled of bitter coffee and cold metal, mixed with the expensive perfume of passers-by who moved on without noticing the two figures frozen in the crowd. Bruno Mars clutched his passport too tightly, as if the paper could turn into an anchor and keep him there. His eyes searched Rosé's face. Eyes that usually shone under stage lights now looked wet, red, and filled with a fear he had never admitted. The sound of rolling suitcases scraping across marble floors struck like a countdown, forcing a decision that could no longer be delayed. Rosé pressed her forehead against Bruno's chest. She could feel his heart beating out of rhythm, a pulse she knew like a secret song. Her hands gripped his jacket, a small habit she always had when anxious, as if the fabric were the only proof he was real and not already disappearing. "You promised," she said softly, almost drowned out by the final call. "You said you wouldn't leave without explaining." Bruno closed his eyes. A secret throbbed in his mind, heavy and bitter. He remembered endless nights in the studio, anonymous phone calls, contracts that left him no choice. There was a fear he kept tightly hidden. If he stayed, Rosé would be dragged into a storm that could destroy her career and her safety. If he left, he might lose the only home he had ever felt. The dilemma tore him apart from the inside, and for the first time, he was afraid of his own honesty. "Listen to me," Bruno said, his voice low and rough. He touched Rosé's cheek, wiping her tears with his thumb, a touch that felt like goodbye. "There are things I can't tell you right now, not because I don't trust you, but because I love you too much." The words fell like a double-edged blade, hurting and soothing at once. Rosé shook her head, her blonde hair brushing his chin, carrying the scent of shampoo that always reminded him of quiet mornings that now felt impossibly distant. From afar, a man in a dark suit watched them. His gaze was cold, his hand brushing a small earpiece. The threat was formless yet real, casting a long shadow between the bright airport lights. Rosé felt a bad premonition crawl up her spine, the same feeling she had when a stage was about to collapse under the spotlight, when something was about to change forever. "If you go," Rosé said, her voice breaking yet firm, "give me one promise that can't be undone." She lifted her face, eyes meeting his. There was courage born from pain, and Rosé's unique habit, staring straight ahead when afraid, surfaced with full force. "Promise me you'll come back, not as a shadow, but as your whole self." Bruno took a long breath. In his mind, past and future collided, old betrayal trauma, the guilt he carried, and a simple desire to live without masks. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I will come back," he said, not as an empty vow, but as an oath carved into his chest. "And when that time comes, there will be no more whispers, only the truth." The boarding gate opened. Footsteps called him forward. Bruno released Rosé's grip with painful effort, as if their fingers were bound by something invisible. Rosé stood frozen, tears falling silently, yet her chest felt warm with one thing left behind, a fragile but real hope. As Bruno walked away, he turned back one last time. That look held everything: regret, love, and a promise that would be tested by distance and time. The night swallowed the city the moment Bruno's plane lifted off, and Rosé stood alone outside the airport, as if the world had forgotten to move with her. Her phone vibrated in her palm before she even reached the curb. Unknown number. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, then answered. "Rosé," a man's voice said, calm, controlled, and unmistakably not Bruno's. "You should go home. Tonight is not safe for questions." "Who is this?" she snapped, anger flaring through the ache. "If you think you can scare me." "This isn't fear," the man cut in. "It's a warning. Bruno didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because staying would have destroyed you." The line went dead. Rosé stood there, breath shallow, the city's neon lights blurring into streaks of color. Her hands were shaking, but her spine straightened. Someone thought they could decide her fate for her again. She hailed a cab and gave her address, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Hours later in her apartment, the silence felt louder than the airport ever had. She kicked off her shoes, paced, replayed every word Bruno had said, every pause he'd taken. The lie wasn't in his voice, she knew that, but the omission was, and omissions were just truths waiting to explode. Another message arrived, this time a name. Daniel Cross. No context, just the name. Rosé's breath caught. She recognized it instantly, from hushed conversations, from contracts people pretended didn't exist, from a world that smiled for cameras and sharpened knives backstage. Daniel Cross didn't manage artists. He controlled outcomes. She typed back before fear could stop her. "What did you do to him?" The reply came immediately. "I saved him. Whether he saves you depends on how quiet you stay." Rosé laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "You don't know me," she whispered to the empty room. Her reflection in the window looked steadier than she felt, eyes swollen but burning. "And you definitely don't get to tell me when to be quiet." Across the ocean, Bruno sat alone in a dim hotel room, city lights flickering like broken stars beyond the glass. He hadn't slept. His phone lay on the table, face down, as if it could accuse him if he looked at it too long. A knock came at the door. He didn't need to open it to know who it was. "You left her crying," Daniel Cross said smoothly as he stepped inside, straightening his cufflinks. "That was part of the agreement." "You said nothing about threatening her," Bruno shot back, anger finally cracking through his restraint. Daniel smiled. "I said I'd handle it. You're the one who couldn't let go cleanly." Bruno moved closer, voice low and dangerous. "If anything happens to her..." "You'll do what?" Daniel interrupted, unbothered. "Break the contract, ruin your tour, drag her name into a scandal that'll eat her alive." He leaned in. "You think you're protecting her. You're just postponing the damage." Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Bruno turned away, fists clenched. "I'll finish what I agreed to," he said. "But when it's over, you're done with us." Daniel chuckled. "There is no us. There's leverage, and right now she's yours." Back in her apartment, Rosé sat on the floor with her back against the couch, phone glowing in the dark. She played Bruno's last voicemail again, the one he'd sent weeks ago, casual, warm, hiding too much between the lines. She heard it now, the hesitation, the forced brightness, the goodbye he hadn't been ready to say. Her phone buzzed once more. This time, it was Bruno. Just one message. "I'm okay, please trust me." Tears slid down her cheeks, but her voice was steady when she whispered back to the empty room. "I do trust you. That's why I won't stop." She typed slowly, deliberately. "I know someone is pulling your strings. I don't care how dangerous this gets. I'm not waiting anymore." The message showed as delivered, not read. Rosé stood, wiping her face, something fierce settling in her chest. Love, she realized, wasn't only patience and sacrifice. Sometimes it was defiance. Sometimes it was choosing to walk straight into the fire because standing still hurt more. Somewhere between continents, secrets were tightening their grip, promises were being tested, and two hearts were moving toward the same truth from opposite directions, one step closer to collision, and neither willing to turn back. The concert hall roared like a living creature, heat and sound crashing against Bruno's chest as he stood beneath blinding lights, smiling for thousands while his heart pounded to a rhythm no drummer could hear. Every lyric tasted different now. He sang about love while wondering how far love could stretch before it snapped. Between verses, his eyes flicked to the wings of the stage, half expecting Daniel Cross's silhouette, half hopping not to see it. Backstage after the show, sweat cooling on his skin, Bruno tore off his jacket and paced. "You promised this wouldn't touch her," he said the moment Daniel appeared, voice sharp, barely contained. Daniel leaned against a table, unfazed. "And yet she keeps touching it herself. She's asking questions, dangerous ones." "She deserves answers." "Deserve," Daniel laughed softly. "That's a romantic word for an industry that eats sincerity alive." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "She contacted a journalist in Paris. If that story breaks, your career won't be the only casualty." Bruno froze. "You're lying." "I'm warning you," Daniel corrected. "Again." Across the city, Rosé sat in a dim cafe long past midnight, fingers wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. The journalist across from her, young, hungry, reckless, leaned in. "If what you're saying is true," he whispered, "this is bigger than a love story. This is control, coercion." Rosé swallowed. "I don't want revenge," she said, voice trembling but clear. "I want the truth, and I want him free." Her phone buzzed. Bruno. She stepped outside into the cold, breath fogging the air. "Tell me you're okay," she demanded the second she answered. "I'm not," Bruno said honestly, "and neither are you if you keep doing this." "So you admit it," she shot back. "Someone owns your silence." A pause, then quietly, "Yes." The word hit harder than any denial. Rosé pressed her palm to the brick wall, grounding herself. "Then stop letting them," she said. "Let me stand with you." "You don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," she snapped, tears streaking down as anger surged. "I'm asking you to trust me the way I trust you. Or was that promise at the airport just another performance?" Bruno closed his eyes, her words cut because they were true. "Meet me," he said suddenly. "Tomorrow night, no handlers, no phones." Daniel's voice echoed in his mind like a threat already fulfilled. Rosé didn't hesitate. "Name the place." The warehouse by the river smelled of rust and rain, lights flickering as if unsure they wanted to witness what was about to happen. Rosé arrived first, heart racing, senses sharp. When Bruno stepped out of the shadows, the relief nearly buckled her knees. They stared at each other for a long second, the distance between them electric. "You shouldn't be here," Bruno said softly. "Neither should you," she replied, then crossed the space in 3 strides and slapped him once, sharp, real. "Don't ever disappear on me like that again." He grabbed her wrist, not to stop her but to hold on. "I was trying to save you." "And I was drowning without you," she shot back, voice breaking. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to love someone who keeps choosing fear over us?" The words hung heavy. Bruno's grip loosened, his shoulders sagging. "I'm scared," he admitted, barely above a whisper. "Scared I'll ruin you, scared I'll lose everything." Rosé stepped closer, forehead against his chest again, just like the airport. "Then lose it with me," she said. "Don't shut me out." A slow clap cut through the moment. Daniel Cross emerged from the darkness, smiling. "Beautiful," he said. "Truly, I almost feel bad ending it." Rosé turned, fury blazing. "You don't get to be here." "Oh, I always get to be where I'm needed," Daniel replied coolly. "Bruno, this was your one mistake, sentimentality." Bruno moved in front of Rosé without thinking. "You said you were done controlling us." Daniel's eyes hardened. "I said I'd let you think that." He glanced at Rosé. "Walk away now and this ends quietly. Stay and everything you love becomes collateral." Rosé laughed through her tears. "You think fear still works on us?" Daniel tilted his head. "It always does." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Too close, too sudden. Rosé's breath caught. Bruno realized it at the same time. This was never a conversation. It was a trap. Bruno took Rosé's hand, squeezing once. "No more running," he said. She squeezed back. No more silence. As the warehouse lights flared and footsteps echoed outside, they stood together, hearts pounding in unison, finally on the same side of the truth, no matter the cost. The sirens dissolved into silence just as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the warehouse wrapped in a thick, unnatural quiet. Bruno didn't relax his grip on Rosé's hand. His pulse hammered against her palm, fast and furious, as if his body already knew this wasn't over. Daniel smiled, slow and deliberate. "Relax," he said. "If I wanted you arrested, you wouldn't still be standing." Rosé stepped forward, ripping her hand free. "You think you can summon fear like a prop and we'll just fold?" Her voice shook, but not with weakness. "You underestimate how tired I am of being threatened." Daniel's gaze slid to her, assessing. "I underestimate nothing, I calculate." He turned back to Bruno. "And your calculation just changed." Bruno clenched his jaw. "Say it." "I'm canceling the next leg of your tour," Daniel replied calmly. "Effective immediately, A health issue. The public will sympathize, your label will panic, and he nodded toward Rosé, will become the question everyone's asking but no one can answer. Rosé's breath caught. You're using him to erase me. Daniel shrugged. Or I'm erasing you to protect him. Depends on the angle. That's enough, Bruno snapped, stepping closer until they were inches apart. You don't own my silence anymore. Daniel leaned in, voice icy. I own the evidence, the contracts, the recordings. One word from me and everything you've built becomes a scandal that eats you alive. He smiled thinly. And she'll be standing right in the blast radius. Rosé laughed again, but this time it was raw, cracked. You think my life is collateral? She moved beside Bruno, shoulder to shoulder. I've lived under microscopes and expectations since I was a teenager. You're not special. You're just another man who thinks fear is power. Daniel's smile faltered for the first time. Listen carefully, Rosé continued, heat rising. If you destroy him, you destroy me. And if you destroy me, I won't go quietly. I'll tell everything. Not through whispers, through the loudest platforms I have. Bruno turned to her sharply. Rosé. No, she cut him off, eyes never leaving Daniel. I'm done being protected into silence. A long pause stretched. Daniel exhaled slowly, as if recalculating an equation that no longer balanced. You're emotional, he said at last. That makes you unpredictable. Good, she shot back. You should be scared. Daniel straightened his jacket. This isn't over, he said coolly. It's just changing shape. He stepped back into the shadows, his voice lingering. Choose each other if you want. Just don't pretend there won't be consequences. When he was gone, the warehouse felt colder, emptier, like the aftermath of a storm. Bruno turned to Rosé, eyes dark with a mix of fear and awe. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she replied softly. Her bravado melted, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Because if loving you means losing everything anyway, I want it to be my choice. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, forehead pressed to her hair. I was so afraid of ruining you, he murmured. I didn't realize I was hurting you instead. She clutched his shirt, tears finally spilling. I don't need you to be perfect, she whispered. I need you to be here with me. He tilted her chin up, eyes glistening. I'm here, he said. No contracts, no handlers, just me. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against metal like a restless heartbeat. In the distance, phones buzzed, rumors stirred, and a world built on silence started to crack. Inside the warehouse, Bruno and Rosé stood together in the wreckage of old fears, knowing that whatever came next, scandal, loss, or redemption, they would face it side by side, no longer whispering, no longer running. Morning broke without mercy. News alerts exploded across screens before the sun fully rose, headlines screaming speculation, blurry photos of Bruno and Rosé outside the warehouse circulating like wildfire. Secret meeting, tour canceled amid rumors. Is love the real scandal? The world had decided they were a story, whether they were ready or not. Rosé stood by the hotel window, phone clenched in her hand, watching cars blur past below. They're already rewriting us, she said quietly. Look at this, half-truths, guesses, lies dressed up as facts. Bruno sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She turned sharply. And this is exactly why silence never works. He looked up, conflict etched deep into his face. If this turns ugly, I lose everything. Rosé walked toward him, kneeling so they were eye level. And if you keep choosing fear, she said softly but firmly, you lose yourself, which loss scares you more. Before he could answer, his phone rang. Daniel. Bruno answered, putting it on speaker. You should check the markets, Daniel said coolly. Sponsors are nervous. Labels are asking questions. You still have time to fix this. Rosé leaned closer to the phone. You mean erase me again? Daniel exhaled. You're not the problem, you're the distraction. That's where you're wrong, she snapped. I'm the truth you can't control. Silence. Then Daniel laughed, low and incredulous. You really think truth wins in this business? Bruno stood, voice steady now. I do, and even if it doesn't, I'm done letting you decide my life. You're making a mistake, Daniel warned. Once this door opens, there's no closing it. Rosé reached for Bruno's hand, squeezing it once. Good, she said. We're done living in rooms without air. The call ended. Hours later, the room filled with quiet determination. Bruno stared at a blank screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. If I do this, he said, barely audible, there's no going back. Rosé nodded. I know. He began to type. Not a statement crafted by lawyers, not an apology shaped by fear. Just truth, messy, honest, raw. He wrote about control disguised as protection, about contracts that silenced, about love used as leverage. And finally, about Rosé, not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as the person who taught him courage again. When he hit publish, the world seemed to hold its breath. Minutes later, Rosé's phone buzzed nonstop. Support, backlash, shock, admiration, hate, love, everything at once. She looked at Bruno, eyes shining with tears. Whatever happens now, she said, voice trembling, thank you for choosing me. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like something fragile and fierce. Thank you for teaching me how to stop running. Night fell again, quieter this time. They stood on the balcony, city lights glowing beneath them like 1,000 uncertain futures. The storm hadn't passed, it had only begun, but there was something different in the air. Freedom, maybe, or truth finally allowed to breathe. Rosé rested her head on Bruno's shoulder. Do you think it was worth it? She asked. He kissed the top of her head, eyes fixed on the horizon. Ask me again when we're old, he said softly. But right now, yes. 1,000 times yes. Below them, the world kept spinning, hungry for stories, desperate for endings. But for the first time, their story wasn't being whispered in shadows or broken by fear. It stood in the open, scarred, honest, and alive. And in that fragile, defiant moment, amid chaos and consequence, Rosé and Bruno understood something simple and irreversible. Love didn't save them from the storm. Love taught them how to stand in it together.